Hello, everyone. Today on our show, we have Mayank Bishnoi, founder of Hubble Money. Hubble is a B2C fintech startup which gives consumers a saving platform and makes their lifestyle goals more affordable. Mayank is a graduate from IIT Roorkee and completed his MBA from ISB. He's worked with companies like McKinsey and MasterCard, among others, before starting Hubble Money, along with his co founder Neeraj in 2022. Let us hear more from Mayank about his journey so far. Welcome to the show, Mayank. Thank you so much for sparing time for this.
Thanks, Anuradha. Great to be here. Would love to share my experiences with people who watch the podcast, and yeah, great. Like sort of good to share whatever learnings I've had over the last 10, 12 years, whether in my professional career or as a founder. It would be good to sort of share those.
Sure. So before we begin, Mayank, please help our listeners with a quick recap of the journey so far at Hubble, and what were the major milestones, current scale of the business. Also, you'll do a better job of explaining everyone what Hubble is all about.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, we started Hubble in 2021. That's when the company was founded. Me and Neeraj are the two founders of the company. And the idea that we started with was more around how do we, make people who use UPI or who do not have credit cards in India, how do we make their lifestyle more rewarding, right? So all of us know that a lot of rewards or benefits are centered or allocated to people who have credit cards or who are, let's say, high income folks, right? Who know about these products or who can afford these products. But what about 95% of Indian consumers who are shopping online, offline, using cash, using UPI, debit cards, and so on? How do we make sure that they also get certain kind of benefits on their shopping? All of us love to save money when we are shopping. We are naturally we look for discounts, deals everywhere. We go to different websites and search for coupon codes and whatever helps reduce our bill for that spend, right? So we said, why not sort of create a platform where users can come and this will become a trusted platform, right from giving them assured benefits on their spends and
Hmm.
helping them not just on the pre-purchase part, but on the post-purchase part as well, right? So Hubble is a platform today. It's a B2C app available on both App Store and Play Store. We have partnered with roughly 300 plus brands today. And with these brands, whenever you are shopping on their online channel or offline channel, you can actually shop via Hubble and you are assured to get certain benefits, right? So it can be a 3% kind of a discount, 5% kind of a discount, 10% kind of a saving that you are getting. And for users who don't have credit cards, who rely on UPI as a payment mode, this serves wonders for them because every time they are saving at least 5 to 10% on their purchases. So that's what the platform is about. We do, I mean, just in terms of scale, we on an average, our annual what we call as a GMV, which is the total spend happening through the platform, is roughly around 200 CR right now, right? And yeah, that's the scale. We are growing month on month organically. Most of our acquisitions are organic today because it spreads through word of mouth. People sort of talk about it. If you have saved 5%, 10% on your purchases seamlessly, then you are naturally bound to talk about it with your friends, family, and that is how we also sort of continue to grow today.
Got it. Now, that's a fantastic scale at which you're operating. And organically, if you're acquiring users, then it validates that the product is much needed. Mayank, let's go back a little bit more. Talk about, where you are from, your family background, education. What was your earlier career like? And then probably how you stumbled upon the idea of Hubble Money. What inspired you both to come together and start Hubble?
Yeah. So, I mean, I come from a place called Bijnor. It's in western UP, almost 150 kilometers from Delhi.
Okay.
And I grew up there. I mean, I did my schooling in Bijnor till 12th standard and then went to IIT Roorkee for my undergrad. Um, After that, I mean, I mean, I graduated in 2008, so it's been almost like 15, 16 years of journey, right? I mean, when you are going through that journey, you don't realize how much time has passed. But when I look back, it's been 14, 15 years. I started with Deutsche Bank. I was part of their mortgage-backed securities team. Moved to Bank of America after working for 2 years in Deutsche Bank. And throughout the first 4, 5 years of my career, I got interested in financial services. So I started writing CFA exam. But I was more focused on the US market because these institutions, Deep Deutsche Bank and Bank of America, both the teams that I was working with were sort of supporting US markets, right? The idea was to always shift my focus to India, and that's how the move to ISB sort of got determined, saying I need to change my focus to India. So what are the ways in which I can do it? And also one thing which constantly I have sort of tried to do in my career consciously after every couple of years is to sort of upskill myself, right? Or to sort of do challenge myself. If I start feeling some more comfortable in something, then I mean internally I start realizing that there is something wrong, right? And that's how after 4 or 5 years of working with Deutsche Bank and Bank of America, I thought I am not actually sort of upskilling myself, and my career is going to be a 30, 40 years career, and no way I can sort of continue with the same skill set. So, that also prompted me to go for higher education. And after ISB, went to McKinsey for a couple of years, was there close to 5 years, and then MasterCard, all through sort of focusing majorly on financial services. I think after working for 10, 12 years, by the way, my co-founder Neeraj is also from ISB. We were flatmates at ISB for 1 year, right? So we knew each other, like we know each other very well. We stayed together for 1 year, and even after graduation, we stayed in touch. So I think it so happened by chance that after 10, 12 years of working, um, you know, uh, and India was going through a startup sort of revolution, right? Like there were companies getting built in front of our eyes. I graduated in 2008, and that was the time when, let's say, a Zomato or a Snapdeal or a Flipkart were just founded, right? 1 year, 2 years back. And I have actually seen their journey firsthand. And when I say firsthand, as in as a user or as a consumer or as an outsider, because these were people who were coming from the same kind of backgrounds, right? IIT, Delhi, and so on. So you could relate much more, right? Saying these are the same type of people, who we have studied with. And you've seen that journey. And I'm not only talking about the success part, but success came actually much later for the likes of Zomato, Snapdeal, and these guys. But the first 5, 6 years were mostly sort of building something and sort of trying to establish a concept, trying to do something of their own rather than going to large, cushy sort of jobs, right? And after 10, 12 years, when I gained more experience, became more confident, I thought maybe the while I do not know enough or all of it, but what I started to sort of believe in that until unless you start, you will never get to know whether you could sort of do something of your own or not. And that started playing in my mind like very frequently. And while Neeraj and I were in touch as friends, he on the other hand, after ISB went to Ola and he was there for 5 years, then went to ClearTech. So he got involved in the startup journey, and both of us started talking. Like he also, like there was a itch inside him also to sort of do something, because he was for the last year was in at the center of startup ecosystem. There were people who left Ola and founded their own companies and ClearTax and so on. He was more involved on the product side. And we started talking and we started sort of thinking, saying, can we do something together? Um, Started deliberating on the ideas, spent 6 months thinking about where do we feel opportunity lies, where do we sort of see our passion lies, right? And is there something which we can create and which will be valuable to consumers or to users? And that's how Hubble was founded in 2021. We started with a simple idea of what is called save now, buy later, right? So a credit revolution was taking place, but we said there are consumers who plan their purchases in advance. How do we help them sort of achieve their targets and help them financially also? So we tied up with few merchants on large ticket purchases like electronics, jewelry, and so on. And then along the journey, I think, I mean, thinking of milestones, obviously there were a lot of big events that led to where we are today. I can think of, closing our, let's say, seed funding round with Sequoia in 2021, then hiring our first set of colleagues, right? I think 4 or 5 people who are still with us today for the last 3 years, and that's what led to the foundation of the company, launching our first mobile app, right? Getting our first brand partner on board, right? Getting our banking partner, which was Fino Payments Bank, right? So that was one milestone. Yeah, and getting 200,000 users, 200,000 users. Like we are at 200 CR GMV today. I mean, and we feel we have not done enough, right? But even if I just and as I'm talking, I'm just reflecting on when we started. There was nothing, like literally nothing.
Correct.
It was uh 4 or 5 people in a room working out of co-working space, uh trying to create that application. Application got launched, user acquisition, um, building product, post like customer support, financial sort of processes, and we run that business today. While like there's a lot to be done, but yeah, I mean that's how the journey has been.
Sure. No, this is very interesting, Mayank. In fact, I was thinking about how you guys came together, and sometimes founders decide on a startup idea based on a personal problem they have faced. Sometimes they actually go to the drawing board and look for sectors, white spaces, and probably you guys came to this white space that way. But as two co-founders in a team, why do you think your combination works? Like, what are the complementary skills you bring to the table? What are the similarities that keep you together, but the differences that make it a rich team? How do you
Yeah.
see chemistry with Neeraj?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Anuradha, I mean, when I started, or when we started, Neeraj and I started, I think I never actually thought about this kind of sort of complementary relationship, right? But over the last 2 3 years, I've started appreciating it, right? Because there is certain set of skill sets that Neeraj brings, which is very difficult for me because he was part of product teams at
Hmm.
Ola and ClearTax. So he has much better idea of how products are built, how to sort of engage with tech team members, how
Hmm.
to think about new technologies, right? And if there is a product to be built, he is able to take it up much faster and sort of bring it to life much faster than I ever could, right? I mean, I've not sort of done that in the past with McKinsey and MasterCard. It was more on the business side. Um, Whereas for me, I think since I was coming from more consulting background at McKinsey and then MasterCard, working with large businesses, for me, I mean, I'm able to sort of contribute more from, let's say, I mean, partnership perspective. How do I get more and more partners to sort of work with us? How do we think about businesses in a more holistic manner? How do we think about or how do we sort of strategize in terms of building something, whether something makes sense or not, right? So those are the two complementary sides where he has a good hold of the product side and the tech side. I have a good hold of, let's say, the alliances, partnerships, and the, let's say, the business side, and both of us are able to sort of come together and point out views which adds value to our discussions, right? So yeah, I mean, it's like I've started appreciating it, and while there are differences at times where I might not agree with his sort of decision making and he might not agree with my decision making, but both of us, because of our own skill sets and background and experiences, I think makes for a much richer kind of whatever decisions we take or whatever things we do. Whether right or wrong, like time will tell whether we
Correct.
we were right together or not. But But yeah, there is definitely complementarity, and it helps, right? Like if I paired with somebody like me, maybe we would have done better on the business side and strategy
Mm.
side, but what about the execution side on the product and tech, right? So yeah, it always helps. I think I have started to appreciate it more.
Nice. Yes, you're right. Sometimes people come together with a conscious understanding of the complementary skill set, and sometimes they explore each other's skill sets over time. And like you rightly said, he had much richer startup experience than you. Always, almost always worked with corporates, but then that corporate experience helps you envision scale, right?
Yeah,
Envision processes should be taken care of, while staying in a startup ecosystem helps you learn how to build on the go, how to be jugadu, how to not, get trapped in perfection.
yeah,
Moving on to the next question, Mayank, I know you're acquiring users organically, and once your brand was out there, you must have done some marketing, communication, social media marketing, SEO, etc., to attract users. But I think one daunting task would have been to convince the brands to come on the platform. Uh, do you remember the story of how the first brand came onto the platform, and how did you convince more people to then join? I understand the first few brands are the most difficult to crack, to
yeah,
convince.
yeah. And I mean, it's not just the brand. I think if you think about, let's say, if you're sort of doing a business or launching a startup, right? I think every first uh, thing in that startup, whether it's the first employee,
True.
first partner, first customer, I think everything is very, very critical,
Special.
and yeah, it's special, right? And it's hard to sort of convince the first one to sort of join and trust, right? And that's why I've always felt more gratitude to partners who came on board as the first partner without like any evidence of that thing succeeding
Hmm.
in the past, right? And we had to work hard for it. It was not like a cakewalk, saying we approached certain partners and they came on board. But I remember while we approached many partners during while we were building our app, and we were involved in that process, selling the concept. I think it took us 5 to 6 months to convince a partner to come on board. But
Wow.
you know, when we launched our product or when we launched our app, the partner sort of got excited and said, this looks promising, right? And I want to sort of come on board. But it took us like 5 6 months of hard work, conversation, selling that idea, selling that product, selling the team, and then showing traction also, a little bit of traction also. But yeah, when they came through, then other partners also started sort of coming up. Right. So yeah, I mean, like to anyone sort of building anything, I think the first sort of whether it's your investor, right? Once Sequoia came on board, then things got easier for us
Absolutely.
to hire
Hmm.
folks, right? Things got easier for us to sort of onboard partners also, while
Hmm.
it took us 5 to 6 months, but still there was someone who trusted us, right? And a good name to trust us always helps. So so yeah, I mean, it took us 5 to 6 months to convince the first partner to come on board, and
And I'm assuming initially the founders themselves have to sell, right? You cannot like depend on an external hire to do the sales for you, especially for
yeah.
the first few.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, absolutely. I think like our first few hires were only on the tech side, right? There
mm,
was
mm,
we only hired altogether 4 people outside the two of us, right? And Neeraj and I were the ones who were involved in talking to different partners, approaching them, selling them the idea while we were building the product simultaneously. So like founders have to sort of sell their product, and when the product is not even out there, there is no traction to sort of prove, no one else can actually do that job. So you are
mm.
the only ones who can do that job, and even then it's hard to do it. So you can't hire somebody and say, hey, go and sell it.
Go and sell
You will
it.
not be able to do it, and it's not justified also, because if that passion or that energy or that thinking
Hmm.
uh, will not come from anyone else, because you have spent months thinking about why it will work, why
Hmm.
what are the challenges I see, and so on. and you are the only ones who can talk about it freely with anyone, right? So you have the most background and you have to do it.
In fact, in the initial days, there's nothing much to sell. It is only your vision and it is only your passion that you're selling.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult for a third party who's not a part of either your vision or your passion to sell. And the product gets built out much later when people actually get onboarded. But talking a little more about your initial days, Mayank, I'm sure the lucky break, as people might call it, the Sequoia break, happened much later. But when you guys started out, when it was just the two of you, how did you think about supporting yourself financially? Was there a certain figure in your mind that, I'm ready to lose this much money before I'll probably call it quits? Between the two of you, you had worked before, so I'm assuming you must have decided to bootstrap to a certain scale, and you would have decided to put in some of your own money. But how, the money was almost running out, or you were.
Yeah, so I mean, Anuradha, we were actually very, very lucky in terms of Sequoia coming in very early for us, right? And while we had spent couple of months ideating, couple of months building the prototype, thinking about how we want to sort of position it in front of customers, in front of partners. I think even before we made our first hire, um, Sequoia was on board, right? And that gave us much more confidence in terms of sort of extending it and taking it ahead.
Recording.
No
Uh,
worries.
so, Mayank, we were talking about, how the first investor came on board, because before Sequoia, I'm sure um, you guys must have struggled to hire a team to sustain financially. So, would love to know more about how was it before you raised your first round? How did you think about financially sustaining yourself there? And how did that uh, round with Sequoia happen? Was it easy? Was it tough?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, before we even started hiring, I think we wanted to ensure that we have sufficient capital in the bank. And once we had our prototype ready, once we had a clear idea of what we were trying to do, once we had few partner conversations on the business side, and we felt much more comfortable, we started approaching investors. And I think Sequoia as an investor came on pretty fast. So the turnaround time was quite fast. I mean, it took us from first conversation to closing the term sheet. It took us 3 to 4 weeks at that point in time. But during that time, I mean, we spoke to a lot of other investors also, and which like who could not get conviction on the idea, so they passed, right? And then once Sequoia came in, yes, there was some interest from some other investors also who we thought, yeah, I mean, we did not needed that much amount of capital. So like with $3.5 million, we said it's enough for us to build the product, take it off the ground, do a PMF, and like we need more capital once we are scaling that product. But for the initial phase, we did not need that much. So we also passed on some of the other investors who came on later. But yeah, it was like a 2 month kind of a dedicated effort in terms of reaching out to investors, having conversations. And we got lucky because even before we made our first hire, we had commitment from Sequoia, and that made us more confident also in terms of hiring the right people and hiring the best people in each department. And for people who joined us, it made them also more comfortable seeing Sequoia on the cap table and saying, hey, at least they have that much amount of capital to sustain the business for a couple of years. And yeah, that's how the hiring began.
So yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, you guys were lucky because, like you said, you both had been working for quite some time, so you were comfortable financially. You decided that even for 2 years, if no funding happens, you'll be able to sustain. And a lot of founders have the scariest moment before raising their first round sometimes. But I'm sure even after raising funds, there would have been moments where you sometimes you have a moment of doubt. You feel like, probably, am I doing everything right? Is it going to sustain? In terms of your journey so far, what was the scariest moment for both you founders where you felt like probably everything can go for a toss?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, Anuradha, I think those moment of doubts appear frequently, right? Like, and I think you are always thinking about whether you are doing the right thing or not, and whether this will scale or not. And
Hmm.
sometimes while I mean, you need to have a bit of optimism about the business, but you need to be also paranoid about whether this is actually meaning something to someone in life or
Hmm.
not, right? And if you're not able to create a meaning for someone, then for you, I mean, it does not make sense to sort of continue that thing for long also. So yeah, I mean, when we started, like Sequoia coming in, your first partner coming in, app getting launched. These are some days when you feel very, very excited about sort of achieving something. But I mean, like what we need to realize is that end of the day, it's all about the business that you are running. While these are sort of inputs to that business, the
True.
eventual outcome is how the what customers are saying. Are they buying enough? Are they sort of coming back enough? Are you able to run an efficient organization or not? Because someday you have to sort of stand on your own feet and sort of sustain on your own. So you are always thinking about whether you are doing the right thing or not, and many a times you start thinking whether this is actually a meaningful thing to do or not, right? Whether this is creating value. So those moments of doubts appear, frequently, and those also help you at times, like do things or think about things in a different manner, which can be more value adding. So for us, I mean, if you ask me, when we launched our first product, we acquired a good amount of customers. They came and but we saw, let's say, there was a lower retention happening. So some these
Mhm.
customers came and then they did not come that often afterwards, right? And when you spoke to them, they started talking about the challenges they see. We started sort of seeing a shift in consumer behavior. So while we started with the thesis of savings, what we
Hmm.
realized when we launched the product and acquired customers was that even though users wanted to, like, from the outset or from the outside, it looks like a good concept to everyone, but the consumer behavior today is moving towards more and more instant gratification, right?
True.
And
Hmm.
even though feel that this is the right thing to do, saying put money aside, save money, and sort of get more value on this, I don't want to do it. There is a natural
What
inertia
money?
or
Hmm.
friction which is
Hmm.
preventing me from doing it.
Hmm.
And like after running the business for 4 or 5 months, when we start talking to consumers, we realize that there is a larger consumer shift happening, and what we have done or what we have built is actually counter to the consumer behavior.
Hmm.
And that's where that was a big sort of moment of truth for us, where we sort of, like, Neeraj and I just took a 3 days break, went to a place, stayed there for 3 days, and just started sort of thinking as if we are going to restart,
Correct.
right? And how do we
Pivot.
sort of now
Hmm.
we know that this is happening. Yes, we have sort of spent last 9, 10 months building it, but it's okay. Like, this is the learning that we have had. How do we now build on it? And how do we not sort of make the same mistakes? And that's the cycle that we have been going with, right? And so consumer side is one, and how the market has shifted from what it was in 2021 to what it was in 2022, and 2023 was even the worst. And when I say
Hmm.
worst, in terms of the same investors who always spoke about user growth,
True.
and let's say, the top line metrics, have now started talking about margins, have now started talking about, like, profitability, retention, burn, and so on. So, like, for us, one realization was consumer behavior, saying, hey, consumer behavior has changed. We can't sort of build a product for this type of consumers. Second was investors saying, yeah, now the investor behavior has changed, right? So while we adapted the product or changed the product, but was still sort of built in a way where top line metrics were more important, right?
Correct.
Because that was the market back then in 2021 and early parts of 2022. But then we realized that no, the market has changed and investors no
Hmm.
longer value it. So you're always constantly adapting to the market situations, to the external situations. But then in the last 2 years, at least now we know that see some of these things are they will come and go, but
Hmm.
you have to stay true to how businesses are built, right? Business should be built in the right manner, right? And that philosophy of sort of grow fast, fail fast, I think works in certain kind of environments, but I think grow steady and do the right thing always works, right? So that's our learning also, and that's what we are now sort of working on keeping in mind.
When you said you guys pivoted, was this before you raised funds or after you raised funds?
This was after we raised funds. This is after we basically launched the product,
Okay.
acquired customers.
A lot of hard
We
work
did
already
we did
done.
decent business in terms of top line, like but I think
Hmm.
everything beyond that top line was broken. Uh, and we thought that the first 6 months focus on top line and then think about sort of building or fixing each step along the way, right? But when we pivoted, the market also sort of changed, and we realized no, the business has to be looked in totality. It can't be looked in isolation, saying, oh, top line is great, but rest is broken. It's fine. They will fix it along the way. But
No,
now it
this
was
is
not like that.
very, it would never become self-sustainable. It would never
Yeah.
be fundamentally strong. But what I wanted to ask was, once you have investors on board, if you're making such a trusted decision, you have to really make them understand and rally behind you. Was that a tough thing to do? Were they understanding? Were you able to make your case
Yeah.
well?
So in that aspect, Anuradha, I will sort of give credit to Sequoia and Hirsch in particular. I think as an
Okay.
investor, he has always gone by founder's gut, right? And I mean, he's never sort of, while he has questioned saying why we are doing this and all, but he's always trusted us, saying
Hmm.
if they feel or if they believe that this is not working, then there is some problem in it because they are much closer to the problem right now, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, so I think that's the sign of a mature investor also. When you are launching a business, while you might have the perfect business plan on paper, when you actually go out in the market and you sort of interact with market forces, you realize that 90% of those things don't turn out the way how you imagine them to be at the start. And how you adapt is the biggest thing, saying if this is not working and I anticipated it, what's the best alternative to it, right? Do
Hmm.
I sort of change something in my product? Do I change something in my go-to market strategy? And I think Hirsch, having seen companies in the past, I think he's invested in many companies. He's seen their journey also, so he understood that ideas will go up and down, and there'll always be changes to business model, and there is no straight line answer to business. You will have to constantly iterate and come to an idea which actually starts working and which starts looking sustainable. So I think from an investor management perspective, I think again all credits to Hirsch and Sequoia and now Peak 15 basically. But I think he's always supported us in terms of making those changes or making those pivots to business.
No, that's very good to hear, because often, and which is why probably it's said that you need to choose your investors well, because it becomes a very difficult relationship if you're not able to, as a founder, practice some autonomy, especially in such important decision making. Uh, Last question from my side, Mayank, would be, and after this, we'll move into a rapid fire section where you'll be answering very quickly. Would you like to highlight a few mistakes, like you mentioned before, rookie mistakes that you think you guys made, which other founders can totally avoid?
Yeah, I think I mean there are a lot of mistakes that we have made, rather, but two or three things which I'll say is one, I mean, don't fight uh, consumer behavior, right? Don't fight the trend that you are seeing in front of your eyes, right? And um, while it may look like saying, hey, the trend is only impacting 10% of the people, 15% of the people, you don't realize how fast trends move, right? Like if instant gratification is something which you are seeing, you will sort of, I mean, we underestimated it. We said there's still pocket, there might still be pockets which will sort of take our product, right? But that instant gratification, because there is so little consumer friction, there is no inertia, it just rapidly sort of moved through or shifted consumer behavior entirely. So one, I think don't fight trends
Hmm.
that you are seeing in the market, right?
Got it.
However justified or whatever business case you are able to build, I would still say don't fight it, right? There is no way you can sort of build a good business, scalable business fighting a trend. Second thing I would say is in terms of, I think when you're building a business, the last few years, I'm excluding 2022 and 2023, but I think 3, 4 years before that has always been about, um, this is our learning also the hard way, where you forget the core of the business building, right? And you know, I came from consulting and sort of large organizations, and I've seen how businesses are built. They're built thinking or believing that sustainability or sustainability is the way to go, right? Like if you are
Hmm.
not able to generate profits, or if you are not able to build revenue out of something which you are doing, then you should not do it, right? So and there will be exceptions to it, right? There will be businesses
Correct.
which you will see saying they just acquired tons of millions of users, they monetize it later. There are certain exceptions, but for large majority, I think focus on building the business the right way, which might mean doing the right thing and growing a little slower compared to, let's say, what you thought is sort of demanded in the market, right? That is the second one. And third one, I think in terms of hiring, I would say hire people. And while it's not been a mistake for us, we've generally hired good folks, but there were some
Hmm.
exceptions where
In making these
uh,
mistakes. Hmm.
yeah, where we hired people thinking, saying we need it and let's hire somebody, versus actually finding the right person and
Hmm.
spending time to interview, to sort of identify the right skill sets and so on, and then hiring the person. I think hiring becomes very, very important. You should sort of not compromise
Hiring
on it.
desperately is what you're saying. Don't hire desperately.
Yeah,
Hire
exactly. Don't hire desperately.
full awareness of the fit.
Yeah.
Got it. And now, quickly, there'll be 8 to 10 quick questions, Mayank. Try and answering them in short and quickly if possible.
Okay.
So, first one is 3 traits you would look for in a founding team if you were to invest your own capital today.
So I look for their past experience. I look for the belief that they have in their idea, and I will look for their thinking and vision in terms of how that idea might scale up.
Sure. It is said that you're the average of 5 people you spend most time with. Who are those 5 people for you?
I think, I mean, I don't get to go out that often now. I spend the most time with my daughter and my wife, and then my team members, right? So yeah, that's the short
A
answer.
co-founder, one, your wife, two, your daughter, three, and two more
Yeah.
team members?
Yeah, two more team members, and I think while my co-founder and team members are sort of have influenced me a lot in terms of thinking, but I mean, I also get influenced by my wife and daughter, and I at times have tried to learn things which I'm not able to learn at workplace, just observing them and just sort of thinking about how they think about things.
And your 1 year old daughter keeps you playful and innocent.
Yeah, playful and innocent, and I think that's also helped me sort of work with my team members, right? I think I mean,
Hmm.
when you have a 1 year old daughter and you are always sort of trying to teach her, you are trying to sort of like patiently
Hmm.
play with her, and I've tried to consciously sort of do the same thing at workplace also, because
True.
nobody's like everybody, anyone who tries or who wants to learn, I think should be given the chance to learn, right? You can't expect people to run from day one, and you need to teach them, you need to sort of tell them how things need to be done.
Hmm.
So I've become more patient, I think,
I
after,
think you've drawn an excellent analogy between parenting and leadership, and you can learn for about one thing from the other very, very well. Well
yeah.
said. Where do you see Hubble 5 years from now?
I think Hubble 5 years from now, I mean, what we're trying to create is a rewards and benefits kind of a marketplace, which is not only centered towards the most affluent customers, right? So anyone, I mean, we want to make it like a pre-shopping destination for users who want to save money, who want to sort of know about what are the right places to shop from, what are the
Hmm.
right products to shop. That's what we want to become in the next 5 years. So anybody, if you're shopping today, online, offline, we want you to sort of come to Hubble to get suggestions on, which merchants, which products, what's the best saving mode, and so on. So we want to become that pre-shopping kind of destination.
Got it. Um, One change that you would like to see in Indian startup ecosystem today?
I think the change is already happening as we speak, Anuradha, which was that whole philosophy of just vanity metrics has now gone, right? And there is much more sanity. Whosoever you talk to is trying to do the right thing now, which is saying, is my product creating value to my users or to my partners?
Hmm.
And when I say value, will there be a revenue or will there be a monetization? Will people be willing to pay for it, right?
Correct.
Value is not about saying, hey, I've solved for this problem. But if you're not able to, if the other person is not willing to pay for that problem you have solved, I mean, that value is still a very basic value which you have solved, right?
Hmm.
So now people have started thinking about it, saying, what's the best way in which I can sort of solve problems? And is there a demand for it for which people will be willing to pay? And I think that shift has started happening now.
That's very nice to see because Mayank, a lot of startups who were started in that 2021 kind of frenzy, I see a lot of founders from that startup crib about current, sudden rationalization of investors and
Mhm.
like we talked, right? The change in investor behavior. But it's a
Mm,
fresh change to see that somebody is actually supporting it. Because
mm.
I'm sure you guys must have been hard hit by that, right? Because like you said, the whole mindset with which you're building a startup changes when you know that that's what will bring more capital.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And I mean, we have been hit, like we've been hit hard by this change in the ecosystem macros and so on. Um, and that's why I think I've started appreciating, let's say, publicly listed companies, right? And
mm,
they have taken 20-30 years to reach where they are, patiently building something, right? And
sustained so long.
yeah, and and now since we are also trying to sort of build a steady business, a sustainable business, we know that if we have to reach that scale, it will also take us 10-20 years from here. So that growing fast and like at a breakneck speed, uh, there'll still be some exceptions, like, there'll still be some ideas, some products which will just transcend uh,
Hmm.
through users and consumers and businesses. But I think a lot of businesses will require that patience to build in the right way, and it will take time, right? Everything will take time, whether it's your team, business, partnerships, and so on. So yeah, I mean, that's how the market has started moving now.
And a very relevant question from this discussion: who are the three founders you really look up to, you idolize?
So, I mean, I'm not very well connected personally to a lot of founders, right? I know few of them, but I think there are few companies which I admire as a user, as an outsider,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I know what philosophy they sort of follow also, right? So one is Grow, which is the financial services or investment app, right? I
Right.
think they've done great work over the last few years, stayed under the radar, built the right product, constant focus on adding value to the user and solving the right sort of things for user. The second one is Swiggy, for example. Swiggy is one company which I've moved all my food grocery spends to Swiggy because I just love the purchase journeys, the post purchase support,
Hmm.
and the kind of convenience that they have brought. And right from day one, I think the focus has been on user, right? So doing the right thing for the user. Third one, I think there are more, but third one I would say urban company to an
Hmm.
extent. Again, under the radar, sort of built a massive ecosystem of house help, repairs, and so on.
Tough space to build in. Very tough space
Yeah,
to build
yeah, and very tough, and all like focused on quality of service, quality of partners, right? And they've done remarkably well. There are others also, like Razorpay has done well, and there are
in.
others also. But I think these three companies, every interaction I've had with that company, I've always felt delighted and no complaints so far ever. And they're running at a massive, massive scale.
Very true. Uh, an interesting white space, Mayank, that you see, which the founders in India are currently not building for, but is much required and has immense potential, let's say.
It's a it's a tough one to sort of answer, and rather, I think I mean, there are companies getting built in each space right now, right?
Mm,
And
mm.
so sort of
Nothing from the top of your
I
head.
don't have any white
From
space
the,
which is not occupied.
maybe from
But
the days when you were looking for a white space to build in. Did
yeah,
you?
I mean, like I said, the space that we are building in, which is, let's say, that 95% of the population which is
Hmm,
not getting rewarded for shopping, right?
hmm,
What's the best way to sort of uh, build a rewarding product for them, right? And so that it works for both sides, not only for users but to the partners who are providing those rewards. How do we
hmm,
bring them together in a more collaborative manner, in a way where they get value, the merchants or partners get value? That is one space which we are trying to build something. But then there are so many trends which are happening right now as we speak, with whether it's AI, whether it's travel, whether it's
hmm,
EV,
hmm.
and there are a lot many companies getting built. So yeah, there's no white space that I can think of right now.
It's okay. Top three habits you would recommend founders to develop.
Top three habits. I mean, one, just organize your work or organize your week. Every week, just think about the things that need to be done. And I think one thing which, as a founder, you should always focus on the outcomes rather than the processes, right? So, when I say outcomes, um, while hiring team member is a process and outcome both, but the real
Hmm,
outcome is sort of the business as such, right? Right, how it's shaping up. So keep an eye on the outcomes. Second one, I think you need to coach your team members. You need to
hmm,
guide your team members because they are the ones who will sort of be with you every turn of the journey. And third one is, I think, keep an eye on the outside ecosystem or the changes that are happening, and you can do that via reading articles, listening to founders, sort of reading sort of investor publications and so on. But keep an eye on the outside world, and coming from my own personal experience, consumer behavior and macros,
hmm.
uh, both sort of got changed while we were sort of building our product in the last 2 years.
Right.
And we survived because, like, every 4 or 5 months we said there is a shift happening. If we don't adapt to it, will not be here.
Hmm.
So yeah,
No,
I
I
think.
totally agree. In fact, the thing you said about coaching team and about keeping an eye outside, something very critical to the founders to remember, because we often forget working under the hood and keeping our head down and working all the time. It is very easy to get lost in everyday process and the
Yeah,
frenzy. But these two are your strongest pillars, because most of these startups today, the most valuable capital they have is their human capital.
yeah,
And if you're not coaching it enough, if you're not developing it enough, you're at a disadvantage. And same for the, keeping up with the outside world. Like you rightly mentioned, if you had caught the trend earlier, it would have saved you more time, more effort, on the product you guys built. So overall, thank you so much, Mayank. It was extremely, extremely good talking to you. You're very down to earth, humble, very, I would say, forthcoming. No, कोई मिलावट नहीं है. When you're talking to, when one is talking to you, you can see that you're talking with full authenticity. You're just speaking your mind. So I really enjoyed talking to you, and I hope the listeners also took away some important insights from the episode. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks, Anuradha. Thank you. And I hope, I mean, I don't know, it's been just 2 years of journey for me. But I hope that anyone who listens to it is starting up, has started up, or is thinking about starting up. Maybe there are some things which people can remember or which people can find valuable. I think that will be the success of this conversation.
Definitely. Thank you so much.